Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to be repotting this native red maple. It's a North American native red. It is the most common deciduous tree in North America. They grow from up in Canada here, almost all the way down south in the United States. So a very common tree. This tree was started from a seed about 7 years ago. And it doesn't look like much. It looks like a stick in a pot, but it's very, it's valuable to me. And I'll show you why. Here's a close-up of the trunk of the tree. And you can see, hopefully you can see that there's nice root flare at the base of the tree. And that's because I've been working on the roots from year one of this tree. I let it germinate, then I pruned the taproot off, and I've been pruning the roots pretty well every 1 or 2 years since. It's starting to get that nice flare at the base of the maple, which is, really nice. It makes the tree look stable in the pot. It makes it look mature. The rest of the tree isn't much to look at, but that'll come. Building up this trunk is the hardest part in bonsai. Getting a nice root system and a nice trunk, and then the branch structure comes later with time. Right now the tree is in a broken clay pot. It's in 3 sections. It broke not this winter, but the one before, and I kind of kept it together with some other pots leaning against it. Kind of was careful with the watering, and it survived the summer fine. So this time I'm going to repot it, and I'll put it in a plastic pot, a 3D printed pot. It is a little early to be repotting deciduous trees. I normally wait for about another month till the sap stops flowing. But this tree's been in the basement, and it's above freezing down there, and the buds are starting to swell on it. So it's actually a good time to repot this tree now. I think I'm going to have a very busy spring, so anything I can get done now is just a bonus. Normally I say, let's get the tree out of the pot, but in this case, let's get the pot away from the tree. Like that. And we'll crush this up and compost it for the garden. I'll start raking out the roots now. Starting on the top, raking outwards. So these roots should be in pretty good shape, I'm hoping. Like I said, it's had, 3 or 4 repottings already. There's some of that Irish moss there. I'll pick that out. So it should have a nice radial root base. I don't really have a particular size I want to grow this tree. I just want to, work on everything slowly. I want to grow the tree slowly, keep it, in check, everything. Trying to grow that root system out equally, trying to grow the branches out equally, just trying to make a nice miniature tree. So I've got kind of the surface moss combed out now, so I'm getting down into the roots. Now the roots on these maples are very fine, and by raking like this you are going to tear roots, but you're not going to tear the radial roots that you want to keep. You're going to tear all those fine kind of crossing roots, which is okay. You just have to do it. You can use a root rake for this, or you can use a root hook. You can use a fork, a modified fork, just kind of file down the tips, make them a little more rounded. The important thing is that you do this, not what tool you use, but that it gets done. And that's often the case with bonsai. It's better to do the job with maybe not the perfect tool than to not do the job at all. This tree was last repotted just under 3 years ago, so it's been a little long. I should have done it last year, but I just didn't get time, so it will get done today. And you can see the roots are quite dense in here. It's not an easy job breaking them out. I'll show you a video of 3 years ago when I last repotted it, and you can see what the roots look like then, and then we'll try and compare them to what they look like today. And I think that's it for this year. It'll fit in the pot quite nicely. Maybe, you know, if we pick a front, maybe we'll have to prune off a few more of these end roots to get it to fit really well. But it's not too bad. The tree kept its leaves on this year. They didn't fall off, and that happens every now and then. The maples, they kind of keep their leaves in fall and they kind of fall off in spring. It doesn't happen very often, but it must be just due to the weather conditions or something. I've got much of the surface roots combed out now, so I'm going to flip the tree over and start working on the bottom now, which is just a thick mat of roots. I'll first get these drainage screens out, if I can. The roots have grown all around the drainage screens. There they come. There's one. Like that. And the other, there. There it is. So I've got the drainage screens out, and now it's just a huge mat of roots in the bottom here. So I'll start combing them out again, starting in the middle and working my way outwards. And yeah, I'll be ripping a lot of roots, I think. There's a lot of tangled up roots, just like there was on the top. But we'll get there. This is kind of a messy procedure, and I probably could do it outside, except it's quite cold and everything's covered in snow. But it is supposed to warm up the next few weeks to above freezing, and I may be able to, you know, start more repotting outside. Certainly in the greenhouse it would be quite nice. So even though it's just a complete mat on the bottom, I am slowly raking it out and getting that radial root base. I'll just keep working the top and the bottom of the root mass, and we will get there in the end. But again, I'm finding no, you know, major roots. As I said, I'm trying to grow this tree out slowly and evenly. I'm in no hurry. I just want to develop it in a slow and controlled manner, so it doesn't need major surgery to the roots later on in its life. If you grow a tree in a big training box and let it grow for, you know, 5 years without any root pruning and that, it's like those ones I grow in my front garden. You just end up with this mess of a root system, and you have to make big drastic cuts to the roots, and maybe the tree will survive and maybe it won't. I prefer to grow them slowly from a seed or a small cutting and develop it slowly over time and just kind of keep it under control so you don't have to make those big dangerous cuts later on. And half the time those trees don't look very good in the end anyway. They got these ugly root bases, and I mean, this tree doesn't look like anything right now, but someday it'll look pretty good, I think. I'll show you the technique I'm using for ripping out those matted sections of the roots. So I just come in with the root rake, and I hope I can do this. And I kind of dig down and pull, and you can see the matted roots I get out. Quite a large quantity, but it does keep the nice radial roots intact. So now I can run my comb through this section, or my root rake, not a comb, and you can see there's a high quantity of radial roots in this section still. Even though I'm like taking out a lot of root, all these fine roots, they're just ripping right out. And that's what you want to do with these maples. You want to get rid of all those matted roots. Like I said, otherwise it just becomes, they just all fuse together and become this really dense, uncontrolled root mass. You know, with roots all curling under each other, and the root base is slowly getting there. There's There's another matted section. There, look at all those roots I got out. So that's what I want, is to get my root base so I can run the root rake through all the sections and not get all tangled and matted up like that. There comes some more roots, see that? So it's probably cleaning out 60% of the feeder roots, but it is keeping the good roots that I want. And it'll quickly regrow all these feeder roots. I mean, that's no problem. Maple trees produce a lot of roots, and very quickly too. That's why you need to repot them basically every year. Especially when they start to get larger and get more of a canopy on them. You have to repot them every year. It just generates so much roots. The tree will start lifting out of the pot. It'll get impossible to water. These matted roots like this are hard to get the water down in between them. So when you clean them out like this, water can flow through the roots. It makes the tree healthier, easier for you to water and take care of. There's another matted section in there. There we go. So I am almost done combing the roots out. I can run my root rake through almost every section of the roots now. I'll flip it over and do that to the bottom now. Alright, let's get to the bottom here and I'll do the same, making sure I can run my root rake through every section of it. You want your root base to be flat on the bottom and then curve from your trunk and down into the soil. So even this part of the roots should be on an angle that disappears into the soil. I've got the roots to the point where I can run the root rake through all the roots. So the next step is to spray them with water to clean them up and then do a detailed root pruning. So here I go with the sprayer. I'll just try and clean the roots so I can see them. That's not bad for the top. And now I'll begin the root pruning. So the first thing I notice is this root is sticking up too high. As I said, the roots should flow from the trunk and taper down into the soil. And this kind of runs parallel to the surface of the soil. So off it comes. We'll just prune it nice and flush here, like that. That one's gone. So I always, do a little more raking in that area. You can get at it a little better now. That's better. There's a root here that's sticking up out of the root base, so that's got to be pruned back. Like that. Want everything tapering down. There's a few root hairs sticking up here I could get rid of. There's a root that's kind of crossing here. I can get rid of that. Like that. Those roots aren't too bad. Now I have to go in. You can see, I can see the start of a fairly major root here, so I got to find out what's going on here. Clean those sections out, and the idea is to get the roots fairly even around the radial root base. You don't want big thick roots sticking out and becoming dominant. You want to keep them all kind of fairly even, and that creates that illusion of a miniature tree when all the roots are to scale and in proportion with each other. So this was a fairly thick root, and I've cut it off in the past to reduce the vigor, and that kind of lets the other ones around it catch up. You always will get variation in your root size. You can't and you don't want every root to be exactly the same size. I mean, that doesn't happen in nature either. Variation in size and direction and thickness all contribute to making a natural looking root base. You don't want it to look like it was designed on a CAD system by a person, and this is an idealized version of a tree. I think that can happen in bonsai, is that instead of trees looking like trees in nature, they become like this idea in someone's mind of what the tree should look like to them, and it doesn't even look like a real tree. It looks like their idea of a bonsai tree, and they have their own beauty. All I can say is that style isn't the style I grow my trees in, or try not to, but there's nothing wrong with it. I appreciate it just as much as any other tree, but the ones that really catch my eye are the ones that look like a natural tree. And not just, any natural tree, one that's beautiful. Only one tree out of 100 in nature really catches your eye as being a beautiful tree, and your bonsai tree should be looking like that one tree that catches your eye. It should have special features, and it should be something special, not ordinary. So let's spray these roots down again, now that I can really clearly see what's going on. So, yeah, some corrective work needs to be done. I've got those major surface roots that were pruned back before, and I'll have to continue doing that. Let's just count them. I've got sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know if that one's alive, no, 6, 7, 8. Got lots of roots, but some of these are quite thick, and the vigor will have to be reduced from those thick ones to give the other ones time to catch up. This is the pot that I've chosen for the tree. It's 3D printed by Spectre 3D in the United States. It was a pot I designed on the CAD system. So I'm going to start by kind of placing the tree in the pot, and you can see that it's way too big. The roots spread out. Lengthwise it's okay, but widthwise a lot of reducing needed. So this is kind of an important step because I'm picking the front of the tree. This will determine the root proportions in the future. It'll always either be in an oval pot or a square pot like this for most of its life. So to let these roots grow out longer than the ones front to back is important because it gives us our trunk flare, keeps it in a nice, so it fits in a nice bonsai pot all its life. So I've got to pick the front of the tree, and it's not going to be based on the branches because they can change over the years. It's based on the root base. So I'm going to go in and very carefully look at it. I'm looking at the roots now. So right away, I have a big kind of thick section coming here and one to the right here. Not much in the middle. It kind of bulges here. So right away, this to me is not a very attractive front for the tree. So I'll rotate it around. I have a fairly large root coming off here that then has all these radial roots coming off of this root. So that will require some cleanup. It's not a very attractive front either. Here I have a major root coming out the front here, which isn't the most attractive either. It's not too bad in this view, but I still, I have the one thick root here and one here. A lot of fine roots coming on this side. It's not too bad a front there. I've got a major root here and one here. So, with some sorting out, that could look quite good, and some roots behind to contribute to the trunk flare. That's not a bad front. It could work. That could even work, this view. It's not the worst in the world. This could even work if I do some work to the roots. It's not bad. It shows the flare at the base of the tree probably the best. Although it's not bad on this side either. This side, the trunk is kind of coming towards you, so that that's another bonus for using this as the front. It kind of slightly leans towards the viewer, which always looks better in a tree rather than leaning away from someone. So I think that will be the front. And it looks like that was either the front or the back in the previous pot, because the long roots are going lengthwise and the shorter roots are coming front and back. So I think I'm going to pick that as the front of the tree. I'm going to give the roots a profile prune because I know how I want the tree in the pot. You know, fairly, probably somewhere there. The trunk kind of leans this way and then the mass comes towards this direction. So yeah, it doesn't look bad there. So I'll give it a rough profile prune, just coming in with the scissors. I want space between the roots and the edge of the pot. I don't want roots jammed against the edge of the pot. So I'm just coming in doing a rough profile prune now, just like you do with the top of your trees, and then after the profile prune you go in and refine them later on. So clearing all these roots around the edges of the root base. And again, this profile pruning kind of equals the vigor in the roots. You know, if there is a thick root that takes off, it gets pruned back hard. And the finer roots that are just starting to grow hardly get pruned at all. So it kind of balances the root system in a rough kind of way. Okay, so that's a rough pruning. There is a root here that kind of takes off in a weird direction. I'm going to cut that off shorter. Like that. A few more that can be pruned away here. A little more off the front and the back of the tree. A little more off the front here. Then I think we're pretty good. So now the tree, you know, has lots of room to move around in the pot, so I can position it. It's not jammed up against the front and the back and the sides. So let's position the tree now. I'm out front looking at the tree now. Just seeing where it looks good in the pot. So I'm looking at the front of the tree and you're kind of looking at the side view. I think having the trunk slightly offset here looks best. The tree is just slightly off center. The roots kind of guide your eye up the tree. And it looks balanced over the center of the pot, so the mass, or the visual mass of the tree. So I think right about here is a good place for the tree in the pot. The height is a little too high, so I'm going to have to do some root pruning on the bottom to lower the tree down in the pot. This is a fairly shallow pot. This is the bottom of the root base, and there's a lot of roots sticking down that can be pruned off. At the center down here, you can see the base of the tree. So I'll continue pruning these roots away from the middle of the tree and just keeping those nice radial roots. I've got my root base flat on the bottom now, and you can see all the pruning points where I've cut off roots to get that flat on the bottom root base, and it still tapers down from the top. It's time now to go in and examine the roots. So I don't like this here. I've got a surface root coming out here and another one underneath. And this one isn't coming out very radial. It's kind of coming, I don't know, it should be coming out this direction, and it's kind of going the same direction as that root. So that root has to be either removed entirely or cut so it changes direction. So I'm just getting in there to see what's going on. I think it has to be removed. So I'll get my branch pruners, which need sharpening. Everything's going rusty here. I've got to get to my tools soon. And I'll reduce it back. I'm going to come in, remove the part that's going the wrong direction, like that. I don't know if I got enough of it yet, but that's a start. There we go. A lot of roots coming off of that. So it still looks bad. I still got to take it back further. So now I can get my pruners in here. That's better. Something should grow in the right direction. I'll just clean up this part of it. There. It's gotten rid of the problem, and something new should grow in the right direction, or something may already be there and it'll just develop further. So there's another root here. This is the radial root, and there's another root coming off of that radial root. That doesn't really flow. These ones flow nicely, but this one kind of turns 90 degrees. So that one has to be removed. So here I go. That one's gone. So these roots flow nicely. It kind of leaves a bit of a space here, but something, as I said, something will grow in there. Now, this root, see how everything flows down nicely, but this one kind of comes out 90 degrees and it's kind of thick and doesn't flow in with the trunk. So that has to be removed. So here I go. Just like that. So that looks much better now. You can see the new roots underneath flow in nicely with the trunk. This one's quite nice. Just going around. This one has its problems here. I have kind of one thick root coming down, possibly two there. And then all these roots coming off the one side, so that has to be fixed and corrected. Yeah, I'm not too happy with that one. So I'm just trying to get in here and see what's going on with the roots. Well, let's start eliminating some of these weird ones from here that are kind of growing from the top of the root and going 90 degrees off. Don't like those much. These ones aren't too bad. They kind of flow nicely. I think it was just mainly that one and maybe this one here. Definitely that one there. That's gone. I'll just get my root rake and kind of sort that section out now that it's kind of cleared out a bit better. And this side also. You always want to see what's going on with the roots. You don't want to have all these roots curled up underneath that you don't really know what's going on with them. You don't want to be guessing, I guess, is the point I'm trying to make, I guess. Okay, so these roots are fairly thick, these two. They have been cut off and they're dividing now nicely. So I don't think there's a whole lot I can do with them other than, you know, kind of reduce all the feeder roots that are coming off them. So it'll take a bit of vigor out of those roots. Give the other ones a bit of time to catch up. And also with this one, we'll take it back a little further around that root. Bit of a crossing root here I got to get rid of. That's better. So that's all looking much better. Now again, you can't do everything to the root base at once. I mean, everyone wants a perfect root base, but you have to be patient sometimes. It might take, you know, 2 or 3 or more pottings before you start to see that, you know, beautiful root base developing. I think we're pretty close here. Yeah, I think that's about all I can do in this potting session. I've done as much work to the roots as I dare do in this potting session. I have a good confidence the tree will live, but you never know. So we'll treat it as best we can, and hopefully it'll recover and grow into a nice tree someday. I'll cut out one large drainage screen for the bottom of the pot. So I'll do that now, and then we'll get a layer of soil in and position the tree. So here's my screening. And I'll just, put one big piece in the bottom here. Cut it out to suit the pot. There we go. I think that'll fit in there. I'll check it out. Oh yeah, that fits nicely. See that? Beautiful. Okay. So I need to add a bit of soil on the bottom of the pot. Then I can position the tree. This soil is the leftovers from some of it's Connor's soil and some of it's my soil, so it's kind of a mixture of the two. Okay, so I have a small layer in the bottom here. Put the tree on top, check the height of it in the pot. Hopefully it's okay. I wanted it slightly to this side, about like that, I think. Yeah. Back a little further. Give the roots lots of room front and back. I'll start putting the soil in now. I'm happy with that front view. We'll get the soil worked in all around the roots. I will have to mount it up just slightly in the middle, which is all right. It doesn't look too bad. I'll get out one of my knitting needles and start working the soil into the roots. Yeah, I hope this tree lives fine, but you never know. You can get some crazy weather in spring that just... I can guarantee one thing. In your bonsai journey, you will have trees that will not make it. It doesn't matter how hard you try, how much you protect them. There is some trees that just won't make it. You can have strange weather kill them. You can have insects. You can have drought. Your schedule, maybe you're away for a day or something and couldn't get to it to water it. But, you just keep going with the trees that are still alive. You do your best. That's looking quite good. It's not mounted up too high. I will have to add just a little more soil. It's not even. A little more in the corners here. Back here. Back here. Some on this side. And again, it's better to pile it up a little high around the tree at first, and then you can always rake it away later on once the tree's growing well and the roots are established. Better to be safe than sorry. I know you want to show that nice root base off, but there will come a time for that. And this root base isn't ready yet. It's still in the development stages. It's come a long way, but it's got a long way to go still. So I think I'm pretty good here. I've got the soil worked in around the roots. I'm not feeling any voids or anything. Sorry, when I was videoing the pruning of the roots, it was a little out of focus, and I think sometimes in the plant room here, when it starts getting warm and humid, it seems like the autofocus just kind of cuts out. I should be using manual focus on most of my shots, and sometimes I do. It's just the autofocus works kind of 90% of the time, but occasionally it messes up. Okay, that's looking good. I think the tree's ready for watering. I'll start out by just misting the tree lightly. Get that surface of the soil wet. Once this perlite gets wet, it doesn't fly away in the wind or anything. That's good. And now I can get the watering can and give it a thorough watering. So here I go. And that's running out the drainage holes nicely now. So that is good. With this tree, you're seeing the start of a seedling turning slowly into a bonsai tree. And it starts with that nice root base, getting that taper to the trunk, and then, building it slowly over the years and getting a branch structure and just a continuous development process. And to me, this is the really fun and exciting part of bonsai, is watching this process, a tree going from a little seedling or a stick in a pot to this magnificent tree. It's something few people can witness over the time of their life, seeing it go from a seedling to a mature looking tree. You just can't see that in nature. It takes 100 or 200 years to see that same process. I'll put the North American native red maple back into the basement where it's nice and cool, and I'll give an update in spring no matter what happens. If the tree dies, I'll give an update. If it comes up into leaf and looks beautiful, I'll give an update also. I will place some rocks around the tree just to hold it in place while those roots are getting established. The rocks help prevent surface evaporation in the soil too, so they have some benefit other than just weighing the tree down and holding it in the pot. So there, that's fine. Today's update continues the theme of the maple, growing a tree from a seed into a bonsai. I have a spruce here. I think it's a white spruce that I grew from seed, and it's also making that transition from a seedling into a tree. Here's a close-up of my little spruce. I've pruned it in one previous video, I believe, but I'll definitely start its own playlist. So I will have to repot this spring and give it a pruning, so that'll be coming up on another video. So yeah, again, this is making that transition from a seedling into a tree-like form, so it's kind of halfway between right now. It may be hard for some people to understand why I get so excited about these little tiny seedlings, but I'm trying to show the process where you turn a seedling into a bonsai tree. So, giving it that characteristics that make it look like a mature tree. And that comes with, the root pruning and the top pruning and time. But to me, that's the excitement of bonsai, is watching that progression. It's time now for today's viewers' picks. Today's pictures are sent in by Himanshu. He has a betel nut bonsai that's 4 years old. And he also has a banana bonsai. So thanks, Himanshu. Great pictures. My Brazilian rain tree is on day 3 after repotting. The leaves are out. So far, it's looking really good. So there's hope for it. So that's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for watching today in the Bonsai Zone.